So it's recording. Hi, everybody. This is the Incredible Edible AKYNOS. I'm the Executive Director of the Black Sex Worker Collective, and I am sitting here with the keynote speakers for the conference, which is commemorating Juneteenth, United States, holiday commemorating Black freedom, not July 4th, Juneteenth. So I'm sitting here with Christian Alexander Lovehall, Monica Jones, Stella Nyanzi, and our wonderful partner and mentor organization, Best Practices. And this is just to introduce you all to who's going to be speaking, talk about their work so you can see them, and definitely come out and support the conference. The tickets are already up on Eventbrite right now. Day 1 tickets are out. Day 2 and 3 program will be out on the Eventbrite as well, so you can see what's going to be happening during the conference, and make sure to join our email list so you can get all the wonderful updates this month so you can be prepared to show out for June. All right, so I'm going to start with Stella Nyanzi. Am I right? Did I say that correctly? Yes. Yes. And we're just gonna, Stella, if you could just introduce yourself to everyone and tell them about your work.
Right. Hi, my name is Stella Nyanzi. I'm excited to be one of the keynote speakers for the coming Black Sex Workers Conference. I understand it's a very fast seminar, so it's an important one for me. I want to celebrate sex workers everywhere. Speaking from Uganda, which is my home country, we have a new law. It's called the Sexual Offences Bill, which was passed by our parliament last week, and it's been sent to the president for his signature for assent. And in this law, sex work is recriminalized. And so in 2021, when we're talking about recalibration, it is scary that there's some national contexts in which the country, the parliament is regressing. And so I'm excited that we're going to be discussing, meeting, re-energizing, talking about liberation and retribution and our different contexts. It's good to be Black in the world today, and it's good to be Black and hopeful because there's a lot of negativity surrounding Blackness. There's death surrounding Blackness, but we're alive and we're full of energy. And I think it's important for us to re-energize ourselves. And so I hope that the conference is going to bring us together to re-energize the world, re-energize Blackness, re-energize sex work, re-energize our different spaces in which we operate as women, as whores, as workers, as sellers of sex, as buyers of sex, the whole community. I mean, we all came from sex one day somewhere, and we all do sex in different ways. I'm mainly interested in how sex is politicized and how we politicize it and the politics of sex and the powers we get from sex, but also the powers that are abused around sex and sexualities and sexualness and sexual well-being, sexual rights and sexual health. And so I want to thank AKYNOS very much for creating the space for us to congregate. And I look forward to June. June 16th is my birthday. I celebrate my birthday with the conference. Yes. And so awesome. I'm really energized. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stella. We're going to come back to you in a minute. We know that you're driving home, so I will circle back to you quickly and ask you something else before you get back into the car. But I just want to take the next few minutes to just go around the room and just talk to the other keynotes for a few more minutes, if that's okay with you, or if you've got to get in the car, you just let me know and we'll talk to you while you're driving. Okay, so day 1 keynote is the infamous, impossible baking extraordinaire, Monica Jones. So Monica Jones, if you can introduce yourself to our wonderful studio audience and tell them about your work and why you're so ugly.
Hi, everyone. My name is Monica Jones. I am AKYNOS's younger, more beautiful sister. Thank you, AKYNOS, for that introduction. So my name is Monica Jones. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, located in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm the executive director of the Outlaw Project. The Outlaw Project is named after Sharmis Outlaw, who was a phenomenal Black trans woman who dealt with HIV policy, sex worker policy, homelessness, housing insecurities. And so we uplift her name at the Outlaw Project. And so what I am talking about throughout this year is the Black family and trans love and what we see on mainstream media surrounding Black families and their trans daughters and trans children is that we don't see that Black love exists on media talking about loving their trans gay daughters and sons and everything else. And so I wanted to dispel that myth that like Black people, especially on Juneteenth, do not love their children. There are transphobia and homophobia across the board, but I think African Americans get this label saying that we are more homophobic or we experience more homophobia, which is just a snippet of what society places on Black individuals and Black bodies. And so I want to talk about Black love and talk about Black family love. And yes, we don't want to discredit that. Yes, there are families that kick out their children, but there are families that love and uplift their children. And so I just watched a Dr. Phil episode with his mother, and I saw this mother's humanity and what she was asking and the way she was acting. I saw where it was coming from. And so I will be dissecting her conversation on Juneteenth. And so I really hope that you guys can come and sit down and have this conversation with a phenomenal Black trans woman talking about Black love.
Thank you so much, Monica Jones, with your slutty red pore lipstick. It looks really good on you. Let's go to the person that is closing out the conference, which is the amazing Christian Alexander Lovehall. And I'm really excited to have Christian because I feel like there's not enough trans masculine conversation within the industry. And so I'm excited to have Christian. So Christian, tell the people who you are and what you do.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christian. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a revolutionary, not an activist. There's a difference. But, you know, I advocate for many marginalized communities, trans communities, communities of people with disabilities, those who are undocumented, and sex workers. I am in Philly. I am the founder of the Philly Trans March, and I am also the facilitator of the Trans Masculine Advocacy Network, which is a support group and brotherhood for trans men of color based in Philly. And so, you know, I'm very excited to be a part of this conference. Like AKYNOS said, a lot of times the experiences of Black trans men are not included, you know, in these conversations. I think a lot of times when people think about trans sex workers, as far as the masculine perspective, the first person they think of is Buck Angel, you know, and he's white. So his experiences are a lot different from the experiences of trans men of color. So I'm just really excited to share my experiences, increase our visibility, and just let the world know that we exist and we matter. I think autonomy is very important. Oftentimes the government, you know, just tries to own us in so many different ways. So I'll be touching on that in my speech, in my presentation. And I'm just so excited that this is going on the date that it is. I love Juneteenth. It's something that, you know, I celebrate every year unapologetically. And I just think, you know, having a conversation about sex work and the power of sex work just aligns with that theme of liberation. So kudos for awesome date pick. But I'm very excited, you know, just to be be a part of this conference. And I'm looking forward to, you know, networking with everybody a little bit more. And yeah, just sharing my experience and talking about things that people may not be aware of or just ignorant to.
Thank you, Christian. Best practices, you're here. Do you want to say something to the people? And do you have any questions, like one burning question that you can give to either each keynote or to any one keynote that you just want to choose?
I'd like to, this is best practices, Penelope Saunders. I'd like to encourage everyone to get their tickets for the event. I believe it's $250 for the whole event, and there are day passes as well. So please support these magnificent speakers and the political perspectives that they're bringing. And my one question for the speakers is, what can we do about the issues that you're facing right now? What's your one activist shout out?
We can start with Stella because I know that she's got to hop in that ride soon.
Right. So I think amplification of the issues around criminalization is important. We live in a globalized world, so they tell us, but many times we are not connected well enough. And so we don't follow each other's, what's happening in different parts of the world. But connection, whether it's online or physical, allows us to learn about the different contexts, learn about new topics and areas and challenges, and then amplify the issues. So I think for me, amplification is important. That when we hear a voice, however singular, however low, however soft, however timid, and we amplify it, we give it power.
Thank you, Stella. Monica Jones, would you like to tackle it? Your mic is off, boo.
What I think people can do to support us is empty their pockets for us, bring out money for us, fund our organizations, and invest in us long-term, not just one time. Invest in us long-term so that our organizations can grow longer and longer and we can hire people. Remember that you wouldn't have that money, you wouldn't have your establishment, you wouldn't have capitalism if it wasn't for Black bodies, if it wasn't for African bodies, if it wasn't for resources from Africa and other countries, you wouldn't have those resources. And so give back to the community, pay restitution to Black bodies in any type of way. So just give your money. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Christian?
Yes, Monica stole my answer. Coin is definitely important. But I would add just understanding intersectionality. If you say you care about Black lives, that means that you care about Black sex workers. If you say that you care about trans lives, that means that you care about trans sex workers. So just, realizing that, we are not a community that's, by itself. Sex workers exist in every community. There are people in your lives who are sex workers that you may not know about, so just understanding intersectionality and in the, and just, including sex workers in these conversations. When we're talking about Black Lives Matter, when we're talking about trans lives, sex workers are included in that.
Thank you, Christian. I'm going to ask all of you a question. I'm going to start with Stella, and I would like to, as well, when you're answering, if you can let us know your, any handles, like whether you've got, you're in Uganda, so I don't think you've got like CASHAPP or stuff like that, but like whatever social media handle, if you're on Twitter or Instagram, where people can find you, and please let us know, what does liberation mean to you? Such a corny question, but whatever.
Right, so my Instagram and Facebook are in my name, Stella Nyanzi. And on Twitter, I'm Dr. Stella Nyanzi. The DR comes before the Stella Nyanzi.
That's right.
I think currently in my country, we have internet shutdowns. because of politics. So when you can't find me online or anyone else in Uganda, it means the government is meddling with the internet. But we have internet lives as well. What does liberation mean to me? Freedom and responsibility, but freedom mainly to be, freedom to be without judgment, without arrest, without the fear of stigma, without compromising my life, without censorship, without the guards, just freedom. Liberation means freedom. And I think many times for me, it also means that it comes at a cost. There's a price to pay for freedom, which is kind of sad. Some of us have paid with our lives. Some of us are doing time in jail. Some of us have been thrown out of families because we choose to be who we are, and who we are is not acceptable, particularly in conservative societies. And so freedom does not always come easy. Sometimes it's easy, and that's good. It's good to have freedom without a cost, but many times we have to pay a heavy cost, which is sad. And because freedoms are not always just given to us, especially when we are not among the privileged, be it by race or gender or sexual orientation or gender identity or creed or even political affiliation, I think that then freedom becomes a struggle for which we have to do real hard work and organize and raise resources. The issue about funds was important. And so many times freedom comes at a cost, right? And it's a struggle to get the sort of freedoms that we want. And it's a balance. One has to balance. And it's a constant request, commanded or instructed to be polite about our request for our own freedoms, which is a bit unfortunate because freedom must be, I think, to be free, to be liberated. And I think right now I'm part of the liberation struggle in Uganda. When Christians say it is a revolutionary, not an activist, I was intrigued because I think I'm a bit of both. I believe in the revolution, but when we're losing it and we're losing grasp, but it's taking too long, then sometimes I think we just are stranded and struggling activists. And I'm currently in that moment where we have to resort back to activism to begin organizing, because it seems the revolution is dying out on us. But this might be my last input. The traffic is getting really noisy. I don't know if you can still hear me.
We can hear you. I can hear you fine. I don't hear anything but you.
Oh, good. Okay, so I can still stay around for a few more minutes. Good. But yes, I look forward to learning as well as contributing, learning from others what it means to be liberated, what the liberation work that we need to do is, what is yet to be done, and how can we combine our own energies to synergize those of others, and how can others contribute to our own. Yeah.
So Dr. Stella Nyanzi, I want to ask you a question, and this is going to be the final one, and then you can drive and whatever. I would like to know if there's anything that we can do to support you now, and if you have a question for one of the other keynotes.
Right, so I'll start with the questions. Christian talks about masculinities and he talks about revolutionaries. Is there a place for must all revolutionaries be toxic masculinities? Is it possible that our revolutionary work is not undone by the toxicities that some people insist must come with particular masculinities? And I'm speaking particularly where some people insist that particular masculinities, African masculinities, are violent. African masculinities, therefore, in order for men to feel men, the whole breadth of the whole range of masculinities, then they must be machismo and they must be strong to express their strength. They must then dominate. Is it possible for our revolutionary work to be done without the toxicities that come with particular forms of masculinities? And for Monica, I celebrate you because you're telling an important story. I know about the Black African Ugandan context where transphobia is the order of the day, not only privately in homes. I think the private conversation about families is important, but also in schools and in church and in hospitals and in parliament and everywhere. Transphobia seems to be the order of the day. And so my question would be, how would one redeem oneself as a transgender person within a context of deep transphobia, right from the person they breastfed, the person that breastfed them, right from the mother that birthed them, to the father that sired them, to the school systems they go through, to the churches or mosques if they're people of faith, and to the streets they walk every day. Where is redeeming faith? How do we redeem ourselves from this transphobia that seems to live all around some contexts, such as the Ugandan one, which I come from? Very easy questions. About how one can offer support, I think for now, it's just to get some feedback, particularly on the question around retribution and what you're inviting us as the organizers to do. What is the expectation? Liberation is easy, one can walk through the theme, but what about restitution, retribution? Who is doing that for us? Who's going to pay back? That's a question I have for the organization or the organizers that would help me organize and fine-tune my presentation, which is in its early stages. So this is a good time to get some feedback on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Stella Nyanzi.
Call me Stella.
Stella, you know what? I like to use doctor in front of femmes names because there's a lot of like omission of that. When we're talking about femmes, I go through this with best practices all the time. And I'm always like, doctor, you mean doctor, you're a doctor. And I try to push that out there to remind people that, femmes are doing a lot of amazing things. People within this community are doing a lot of amazing things. And if we've worked our asses off to get a certain status, that you better remember and never forget that this is who we are. Because when it comes to like men, it's easy to get the doctor, label gets thrown around easy when they're men, but when they're femmes, somehow it's like it's forgotten. So I do that on purpose.
Okay,
I will call you Stella.
Dr. Nyanzi, Dr. Nyanzi, Dr. Nyanzi. Call me Dr. Nyanzi.
Dr.
Yeah.
Nyanzi. I want people to remember this is Dr. Nyanzi, not just Stella.
Salute.
Dr. Nyanzi.
Salute.
Exactly. So I want people to remember that. So thank you, Dr. Nyanzi. I can take it to Christian since you asked Christian a question first. And Dr. Nyanzi, if you need to hop off anytime, it's fine now. I got a lot from you for the recording. Thank you. But we're going to just continue the conversation. Don't leave us until we go, but we're going to continue the conversation even if you're driving. Did somebody leave? No. Okay. All right, Christian, you can go for it.
Yes. In terms of masculinity, as a trans man myself, a lot of my work is around redefining masculinity and making masculinity healthy. I'm not interested in imitating the toxic behaviors of cis men. And, within our brotherhood, we try to, look at the things that make masculinity toxic and figure out, how can we become healthier in our expression of masculinity. So that means masculinity that's not rooted in patriarchy, masculinity that's not rooted in white supremacy, masculinity that's not rooted in the stifling of emotions. And so, I think that when we redefine masculinity, that's when, we can truly contribute to the movement. And, I am a part of the movement, so I exist, I'm here, so it's definitely happening, it's possible. And I do want to say, like, as far as revolution versus activists, at least here in my city, activist has become a profession. It's become something that's performative. People go to a march and all of a sudden they're activists. So when I say that I'm a revolutionary, it means that I'm willing to get in the trenches. You know, I'm willing to put my life on the line. I'm willing to go beyond marching and voting, which seems to be, at least in my city, at least in the States, of what I see, like that is the extent of activism. I do feel like revolutionaries can be organized, but I just feel like more needs to be done than voting and marching. And so, you know, I just, you know, I try to do as much as I can and try to be strategic and creative, because I think, you know, our movement, you know, needs creativity. We need to think outside of the box and learn from our ancestors' mistakes. A lot of times people try to romanticize the work of our ancestors, the civil rights movement and past movements, but mistakes were made. So I think, you know, strategically, we definitely need to look at the mistakes that our ancestors made and learn from them.
Thank you, Christian. Monica, do you want to answer? Can I ask Christian my question first, or do you need to answer? Because I know the, or do you need to answer Stella's question now? Because I don't know if you wrote it down or whatnot. Your mic is on. You're muted. I mean,
Go ahead and ask question.
Okay. Okay, cool. So Christian, what does liberation mean to you, and what can we do to support you now?
So liberation to me looks like the destruction of all systems of oppression, systems that are rooted in white supremacy, that are rooted in sexism, rooted in racism. You know, all of the systems, our government, the voting thing that we do, all of the industrial complexes, just a breakdown of all of that, and really giving control to the people and not these so-called representatives that know nothing about the people. In terms of me, coin, you know, I do a lot of work.
Tell us your Cash App and your
Yeah.
handles. Tell us the Cash App and the handle so we know where to send the coins to.
Yeah, so my Cash App is $FROOT FLYORG. That's FruitFly.org. Look us up. I'm also an entrepreneur, FruitFly. But yeah, definitely just money. You know, I feel like a lot of times grassroots organizers are always the last to receive funding, where we're the ones doing the most work. You know, a lot of the bigger organizations, a lot of the big nonprofits, still what we're doing, you know what I'm saying, and apply for grants and get money. So just as a person who is a grassroots organizer, who isn't funded, who relies on community monies to, you know, do the work and sustain as a group, just donate to us. That's how you can support Christian Lovehall.
Thank you. Okay, Monica Jones, you're up next. You can answer Stella's question and I'll circle back to mine.
So when we talk about transphobia, especially outside the US, right, those things are brought into Africa. And I like to follow Ghazi, and he talks about like colonialism and transphobia on the African continent. And transphobia is the fear of the unknown, the fear of like what will happen. And so when we talk about like parents and loved ones, it is that deep fear of what is going to happen to your child that turns into transphobia, right? That turns you into that person that you feared first that is going to happen to your child, right? It is the beheading, it is the brutal way that our trans people are killed that causes that fear, right? And then so the churches are saying, don't be this because this is going to happen to you. But the churches are the same people who are doing the same thing. And so we have to decolonialize our minds and get rid of Western religion and our minds, and that and then that do includes Islam, because that do includes all these religions that talk about heteronormative as the way, and decolonize that and say we are African people and we know our historical context when it comes to trans people, just like indigenous people know the historical context when it comes to two-spirited individuals. And when settlers came over, what did they do to the indigenous people, two-spirited people? They murdered them in the most brutal ways ever. And so we have to decolonize our minds to talk about the trauma that has been impacted on trans bodies and the mothers who had to watch their children being brutalized throughout the decade for being trans. And then they told their other kids, don't be that. That is what true transphobia in the African American community is. You're mute.
Thank you, Ms. Politician Monica for President. Please tell the studio audience what liberation means to you and how we can support you, and where can we send the coins and find you online.
So what liberation means to me is that we are all decolonialized. We all know our historical facts. We don't have to submit our DNA to an establishment and find out where we come from. We know that deep inside where we come from. Colonial, what liberation means to me is that we get to work in a safe space. We have housing. We have access to clean water. We have access to internet. We have access to coins. We have access to everything that is given to everyone else. We have access to that too. And so if Black trans women get it, so does Black women get it. If Black trans men get it, so does Black men get it. So if Black trans men get the right to walk down the street without being profiled, without being shot by the police, so do Black men, cis Black men. And so I want to uplift like our whole community and say like, the people who you think are on the bottom and the people who you think is taking the spotlight away from cis people, if you give them the spotlight, so does cis people get it. And how you can find me is you can find me on Instagram. It is capital TS, my name, Monica. That's my Instagram. And I'm the one with the green hair and the green dress. So you gotta go down a little bit to find me. And my Cash App, and because I want you to Cash App me like City Girl says, Cash App me. And I want to hear coins alerts. So cling, cling, cling. I want to hear them on my phone. So when I'm walking and I'm saying I need something to eat, I just hear a clink and I can buy me a sandwich. And so my Cash App is $ lowercase TS love LOVE 33, my age.
We didn't need to know all that, but okay. Thank you, Monica. Thank you. All right, so this was just a short introduction for the people out there to see what to expect at the conference. I'm not going to keep everybody, around too much because we've got a conference coming up in just under 5 weeks. So you can definitely come. Christian's closing out day 3, June 19th. Monica, Stella, Dr. Nyanzi is opening up day 2, which is June 17th, and Monica opens day 1, which is, I just fucked with the date. What date of these goddamn conference? June 17, 18, 19. Monica's day 1, Stella day 2, Christian day 3. You figure it out because I clearly don't have it in front of me. Anyway, to say goodbye, I just want to remind everyone that the Black Sex Worker Collective does have a fiscal sponsor, Peace Development Fund PDF. If you go to the BSWC.org, you'll on our donate page, you'll see that information. So whatever donations you make, is tax deductible and it goes to them, and all the ticket sales and everything goes to our fiscal sponsor, and then we get it. So everything is tax deductible. We do have a Cash App as well for smaller donations because sometimes people don't have access to like sending larger donations, or they want something really easy. And our Cash App is $BSWC. We have a lot of merch in our store, our Teespring store. It's also up on our website. So we've got all the new merch with the from last year's event, my birthday fundraiser, and then for this year's first annual Black Sex Worker Conference. So you can buy up a ton of merch to support us. And what's super important, I always say this about when people want to support groups. It's great to give money, and money is incredibly important. Because grassroots organizations do have a hard time getting funding. The BSWC has been lucky, but we still haven't gotten any big, 250,000 or even 100,000 plus grant to really sustain us and to be able to pay salaries. So it is really important that you definitely donate to us. And we have worked with Subscribe to Solidarity, which encourages people to give even a little $1 or $5 every month to organizations, which is really important. However, what's also important is that when we have events like this, that people actually show up and listen, because I find that it's very easy to just give money and then walk away. But if we're having these events, and especially within the sex worker rights community, and we're all doing it for each other, it's making our work even harder, because we're not able to reach the masses to understand our viewpoints, understand the stuff that we do, and be able to support us over the long haul, right? Because if you just throw your money and walk away, that anybody can do that. But if you can also show up to the event, that will be super important. Day passes start at $100 a day. There's going to be a $25 off the 3-day pass, which is $250 for 1 week starting this week. So you'll have a week to just, get a little discount on it. So definitely sign up for that. And remember, this theme is about reparations and liberation, right? And I had a really challenging time trying to convey that message to people who were signing up to do the conference, that as sex workers, we are not just sex workers, but just as people in this grassroots movement, that we're so much more than just victim narratives and just sex workers, whatever that means. So we need to expand our ideas and just how we view ourselves and the things that we are capable of doing, and to really try to dig deep within ourselves to find out, what does it mean to reliberate? What does it mean to get reparations? What does it mean to have liberation and freedom? That doesn't force us to think like we have to put out this really sad story in order to get some kind of compassion, because honestly, we should not have to continuously put out a sad victim narrative or something that pulls at your heartstrings. There's many happy stories. I'm so happy Monica Jones is going to have that out for her keynote, but there's a lot of happy stories within our movement that needs to be explored, not just as sex workers, not just as people working, living on the margins, but also as just human beings. There's so much more to us as Black people. There's so much more to us than these really sad narratives. So I'm very happy to have you all there, giving a breath of fresh air to this conference. And I hope everybody can attend. Make sure you get your tickets. We're going to have the Miss Whole World competition, which has not been done in a very long time. So information about that, shut up Monica, is going to go out very soon. And we're also going to be doing the Sex Worker Honors, the top 12 in sex work for 2021 as well. So there's lots of things for you to do to attend. And Miss Whole World is separate from it's not separate from the conference, but it's the only event where you can buy a separate ticket. So support Miss Whole World, sponsor it, sponsor the conference, become a vendor, give back to the community, be there for the presentations. It's going to be amazing to have you. So before I close out, I just want to ask everyone, and I'm going to go from what I see on the screen, if you got any last words you want to say before I edit this video, edit it. I'm not editing anything. I'm just going to add names and hashtags, and put it out for the internet superhighway. I'll start with Christian.
Sure, I just want to say Black Lives Matter, and that includes Black sex workers and Black trans people.
Yeah. Monica Jones.
Oh, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be your keynote speaker, even though I have to fight for it. And yes,
you scammed your way into the keynote. Yes, you did.
I get you into this position. Thank you so much for allowing me.
Thanks, Monica. Dr. Nyanzi.
Right, just to say thank you and to invite people and encourage them to attend the conference. Thank you for organizing us. Sure, bye.
Thanks. Best practices, do you have anything to say before we go?
I think she might be having coffee.
Oops, I'm here. I can't wait to see all these fantastic keynotes, and I can't wait to observe a giant audience watching the keynotes. Be a very happy day.
Thank you, everybody. We are missing Bam Rose from this lineup, so hopefully we'll be able to have a conversation with her at another time. She is one of the keynotes that's supposed to be closing out the conference with Christian, but she's not here today, and we hope that she's okay. Thank you, everybody, for watching. All the information will be at the end of the video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, subscribe to the mailing list, follow the pages. You can follow me, AKYNOS, for my own personal antics, or you can follow the BSWC on Instagram, the Black SWC on Twitter, or just go to the website and all our links are there. Thanks, everybody, and see you soon.